in case it's not clear what I'm showing in this footage, is that the goats have been on this side where it just looks annihilated. The next section is represented by the fence. They're now fenced from that side over, and the goats are actually right over there, so they're making their way this direction. And that's what this should look like. That right there was this. That is habitat. That is destroyed habitat. Let me repeat. That is habitat. That's something that wildlife can actually make use of. That is destroyed habitat. The only use was to fill the stomachs of livestock. This oak tree will be stripped bare. All of these plants, all the green on them, will be stripped bare. Whichever ones are native, whichever ones are not native, the bottom line is that anything good taking place on them is wiped out by the goats. Any nutrition, any green, any flowers, taken by the goats. Whether they kill the plant, remove the plant, or not, at the very bare minimum, whatever positive that the plant was providing, even if it's an invasive, providing the tiniest glimmer of a positive with at least having some green foliage, all that is wiped out by the presence of the goats. So just some location notes. I'm going to use this little area that the neighborhood kids dug out as my mark. I'm just going to walk along here to provide an idea of how much is about to be destroyed. First, understand that the goats are being forced into the creek, fenced into the creek, meaning whether or not they would have consumed these native plants or not, naturally or as a preference, it becomes a moot point because they are fenced into here until they do it. And we're talking about 600 or so goats. So this stuff doesn't stand much of a chance. You can see on the right, they fenced that side first. And you can see that there's no vegetation left over there. Now, people get really into the, oh, vegetation is bad because of fire or whatever reason you bought into that. A primary theme in my videos is going to ask whether or not you considered it from the viewpoint of the wildlife before you just accepted that a office holder, a position holder, made a decision that something was bad and that this is the solution that we are going to take. I've got to point out that these are plants that learned how to survive in a drought in California, and despite the incredible lack of water, remember this is filmed during our drought. This is before we had our nice rain leading up to yet another horribly hot summer. These plants are miraculous in their ability to survive, stay green, stay tall, and it's all that the native animals have left. These aren't bad plants. These are salvation plants, but we've labeled them as bad. The fact that their evolutionary relationship with California's climate allows them to survive despite the harsh conditions and still be able to provide to the wildlife makes it that much more tragic that we just come in and kill it anyway. You can't get a much more blatant contrasting shot than this. Jesus. I mean, they're violent when they eat. You can hardly tell when wildlife have been browsing. With the goats, it looks like humans came through with a tractor. Let me pause us again for a moment. I want you to consider that you are an animal who can't escape into a climate-controlled environment when the heat becomes unbearable. You need shade in any way, shape, or form that you can get it. You need tall plants with a deep root structure that might be able to regulate the temperature of that tiny little area in some way, shape, or form that makes survival possible. You need to be able to escape from the blazing rays of the sun. You need to be able to hide from predators. If you are a small animal like a bird or a lizard, you need the insects that are attracted to these plants for your nourishment, and then that works on up the food chain. You need whatever seeds are remaining on these plants, whatever nourishment might still be in the foliage, any moisture that might still be within them, because the surrounding land has nothing to offer. And beyond that is just development. This is it. This is their last refuge. Let's see, a willow peeking up through the top there. That's a wonderful native for birds and other wildlife. That's going to be destroyed along with everything else. This is truly a tragedy. I mean, what's about to happen to this is really making me angry. The wonderful minty smell let me know to look and confirm that indeed I was smelling pennyroyal. That's a wonderful native herb down here in the creek. We have tall flat sedge. We have narrowleaf willow. Pale smartweed, also native. Just a wonderful collection of native plants here that are about to be annihilated by a system that is telling you it's helping native habitat. They say ignorance is bliss, and I gotta tell you, I almost long for the days where I didn't know the difference between native and not native. But I hear the hummingbirds. You know, I've become familiar with hummingbirds, so now I recognize their song and I recognize the songs of other birds. And between development, between mowing, between edging, between leaf blowing, between livestock grazing, where do people think animals have left to go? Because this is as close to refuge as remains. Let me repeat, this is as close to refuge as remains, because right over there are houses, and in between the houses and the creek, the goats have just fucking annihilated it, just wiped it out entirely. And that's what's happened from this side, going that direction, and then buildings on that side. There's this itty bitty tiny strip here that animals have left to hide in, and it's about to get wiped out. You can see they don't have water to use as refuge. You know, you can imagine how many types of birds and other wildlife would actually use water as a hiding place, as a safety ground, as a nesting ground from predators or anything that you can think of that it might try to escape from. And they don't have the water. The only thing they have is to be able to hide inside of this collection of different native plants. speaking of native versus non-native, here I've got Himalayan blackberry, non-native, which just continues to take over the creek area. And we have a wonderful example of how ineffective the goats are. You see that the vine is still here, still intact, still spreading, still stretching, but the goats did nibble off select pieces here and there. In no way has the actual plant been hindered from continuing to spread, from continuing to be invasive, from continuing to take over area that native plants would like to use. Instead, this plant is choking them all out. And you will hear multiple times the liars that be in positions of power that one of the advantages of goats is fighting off the Himalayan blackberry. It's an absolute, complete, total lie. I mean, the only thing that the goats do is take the leaves or berries if we're lucky enough to have them provide berries. So, once again, you have this hint of a silver lining from a non-native plant, and the goats take that away. All right, I'm just getting too depressed. You get the picture. All this is going to be destroyed. And I can't emphasize enough, this is all that the wildlife have left. And people are going to have the nerve to say shit like, oh my God, I saw a coyote. Oh my God, I saw this and that and the other thing. Oh my God, why are animals coming into the neighborhood? Where the fuck else are they going to go? And how are they going to hide when you just destroyed what they were hiding in? There are two things I want to say before closing. I posted this because of the video I posted the other day about ducks losing their nesting ground. You know, we had great rain this year. That provided water for a while, which is already drying up, unfortunately, at least where I live. And there may have been water, but there wasn't anything to nest in. Why? What killed it? What got rid of it? We got rid of habitat, celebrating something that we call vegetation management. Look, these are the only green plants that you can find at that time of year other than the oak trees. And we decide that we need to kill them because of our fear of fire fuel. We kill the only plants that manage to still be green and resistant to the drought. That doesn't make sense. Did you even think about it?